cancelled because it was due to start last Sunday, but had to be cancelled because of inclement weather. It's the Sacarello Challenge, and a very visual race for you to enjoy, because we can see both the start and the finish from this point over here on the North Mole. And there we see the first of the Calpe crews in Speedy: Dennis Peñarver, Luis Nieto, Jean-Paul Risso, Carlos Mesa and Joey Stykes as cocks. The first of 3 Calpe boats, Med also of course with 3 boats, but the boats being let out individually at 30-second intervals, and it was accumulated time to decide the winner. And there we have the first of the Med crews setting off. This is Christopher Rodriguez at 1, Sigurd Haviland, senior, 2, Karel Mangasco 3, Ian Viñales, stroke Colin Peary as cocks. And they setting up a good rhythm on this very long course, some 7 kilometers in all. And round boys, already the Calpe second crew ready to be given their start. And there they go. And that crew comprising Edmund Bensadong, Leslie Grech, Shane Shakaluga, Chris Borge, with Eric Abudaram as the cocks, the oiler in question being Chiquet. A very experienced crew this. And setting off at a steady, though not a breakneck rhythm, knowing just how much still to be rowed, as we see the second of the Med crews to set out. And there, number 1, Ruben Rodriguez, Jimmy Valerino at 2, Peter Buttigieg at 3, Nicky Viñales, stroke Mark Hemi on the ropes. And they too setting out steadily, getting into a rhythm, as behind them the last of the Calpe crews awaiting the starter's instructions. Precisely 30 seconds, as I say, between the boats. And off they go. That was Alan Darlington, Patrick Cavesuto, Clive Baker, Keith Bautista, with Paco Aquilina as cocks there. Med still had, of course, 1 more boat to set off in pursuit. And that was their first crew, very strong crew, very experienced, but still quite a young crew. And James Viñales at bow there, Stephen Almang at 2, Cathal Yates at 3, Stuart Bensadong, stroke, and Ian McIntosh Cox. Stuart, incidentally, club captain this season, and leading by example, stroking their top boat. And they were going out rather faster than their opponents, and indeed they put in the best performance of the evening, recording the best time. But what makes this regatta interesting for the spectators is that you can judge from the distance between the boats as they go round the course who is making inroads on whom, and you can more or less work out who is likely to be winning. But because it's the accumulated time of the 3 boats from each club that decide the winner, you can never be quite sure. And this was one of the closer ones. The first Calpe crew to have set out, maintaining their lead over the Med crew, but then you can see that Calpe's second crew out, this was the experienced crew, which included Leslie Grech in their ranks. They had practically caught up the first of the Med crews to set off. This is at the end, practically the halfway point of the regatta, and behind them you could also see that the second Med boat had done reasonably, and right behind, look how well the Med first crew had done in catching up the last of the Calpe crews to set off. So certainly all to be rowed for at this stage. It was clear that the Med first crew were making inroads on the leads of the other boats. They were gaining time, probably recording the best time of the day, and indeed they were to go on to do just that. The Calpe crew looking somewhat more laboured by comparison, but coming up to this next turn, there were 2 buoys set on the other side of the harbour, and that was so the boats would go round the course in a triangular formation, and not come straight back down the way they'd gone up, where they could get in the way of boats that were going in the other direction. But there we can see a lead of just some 2 lengths, despite the 30 seconds lead that they were given at the start, almost made up by the Med crew then. They were to go past the Calpe boat. Lots of spectators, as always, lining the inside of the mole. I went from the rowing to the football, and it's ironic, really, many more people watching the rowing in Gibraltar than bother to turn up for the First Division football on a regular basis. But these now the closing stages of the regatta, and this was the first of the Calpe crews to have set out. This is Dennis Beñarver, Luis Tenieto, John Paul Riso, Carlos Mesa and Joey Steich, and they managed to maintain their lead, finishing in a time of 28 minutes and 41 seconds. Rather, 28 minutes, 17.41 seconds. But the important thing was that they stayed ahead of the Med crew that was just behind them and against whom they were really racing. The boat's beginning to get much closer, as you can see in the follow-in. Second crew home was the Calpe crew again, this time of Edmond Ben-Sadong, Leslie Grech, Shane Shakaluga, Chris Borge and Eric Abudaram. They came through in a time of 27 minutes, 54.9 seconds. But look at how the Med crew had done too. They'd caught up quite a bit of ground. Not this particular crew, that's the Med crew of Rodriguez, Valerino, Buttigieg and Viñales, 28.32. Their other Med crew, 27.40.04. But the big question mark would be how the first crew had done. The best time of the entire evening recorded by that Med first crew of James Viñales, Stephen Almang, Cathal Yates and Stuart Ben-Sadong with Ian McIntosh as cocks. They clocked 26 minutes, 49.69. The last Calpe crew home recorded a time of 27 minutes, 36.73 seconds, but on the accumulated time, it was, in fact, Med Rowing Club winning by a margin of some 48 seconds.